there are a lot of writers out there, and like I am at the beginning of this career, and just the fact that I'm a writer isn't enough anymore. I yeah, I have to like pay my dues and write stuff and
Wait,
have
so
some
what
reason.
were like some actual actions and results that you say, oh, now they can consider me as a professional writer?
Um, I I mean, being being paid as a writer, like honestly, that was a big moment. The
Yeah,
first
period.
time, it was like a couple of years out of college, and I had done some paid writing gigs while I was in college. But like the first time I got like a play, like a contract where like a play was going up in like an equity production, like a professional theater company, that felt like a big sort of like seal of approval of like, now I can say I'm a professional playwright because I have professionally made money as a
Yeah.
playwright.
Yes.
And that seemed to like change the game for me. When I signed with my agent, that was another moment where I was like, okay, yes, now I can, now I feel a little more like I'm legitimate in this thing that I do. But the thing that was a constant through all of that was just working. Like I was always working on stuff. Um, and because I think that was the wake up call, was like, well, I just have to work hard. I just have to work really hard. Um, and and I did this first like professional gig I got. I was living in this studio apartment like up in Harlem, and I split it with a friend of mine, and then he went on tour with a show, and like he was still paying his half of the rent, but I didn't feel right having him pay like for anything else. So, like I was paying for utilities and for Wi-Fi. Like we weren't splitting any of the other stuff anymore, and I just didn't have money to pay for Wi-Fi. So like I lost Wi-Fi. So I didn't have Wi-Fi, and there was this like I I had told this company who was considering this play. I was like, yeah, I'll have a draft to you by, Monday morning or whatever. It was like Sunday night. I was working through the night, like, and it was like not five. It was like very much the middle of the night, like 3, 4 a.m. And I had like finished this draft, and I was like, I have to get it off to them. I don't have Wi-Fi, so I like went to the sketchy McDonald's with my laptop to send off the script. And but yeah, I think that was the commitment I made to myself, was like, I'm just gonna hustle, I'm gonna work, and I'm gonna make it happen. That's the one thing that I could control, is working hard, and so I did.
Wow, it sounds like your parents did a good job in that department.
Yeah, in most departments,
In most
yes,
departments, okay.
my parents were great. Are great.
Were they
They're-
always supportive of your writing endeavors?
yeah, they
Oh,
were. They just wanted. I have 3 brothers, and with all of us, they just wanted us to figure out what we wanted to do. And I had this great conversation with my dad. My dad's an architect, and he designs houses. And I was in school when the 2008 housing market crash happened. And I was in college, and I called, everyone was freaking out. All of my friends were freaking out. I mean, the whole country, the whole world was freaking out. But all of us were saying, what are we doing? Like, we're about to graduate into a recession, the whole millennial story. And I called my dad one day, and I was like, I don't know what to do. Like, I think I need to switch my major. Like, this is so irresponsible that I'm about to like get a theater degree. Like in this recession, like I have to I I have to like think of a better plan. And my dad, uh who my parents lost a lot in the housing market crash. Like it hit them really hard because, he works in housing in California. So like it was the worst. So they were in this terrible position. And my dad said, and I'm not gonna like quote him correctly, but he said basically like, I did everything right. Like I got a sensible job. I like got my bachelor's degree in like the sensible fields, and like have just been working in this job that seems to make sense. And then something like the housing market can crash, and you lose everything. And he said, I would hate to see you try and take the safe route and there are no guarantees. I would hate to see you give up on your dream because you're trying to like do something sensible, because the world isn't sensible. Like the world, you have no idea what's going to happen in the future.
What a sweet dad.
And
It's more than sweet. Yeah, very clever.
yeah, he really was very very wise in that moment to say like, it really sucks to, you know, to think that you're sort of bulletproof economically or whatever, and then it all comes crashing down. He's like, just do what you want to do. You can't control the world.
That's amazing that your father could, with one, with one action like this, with one conversation like this, could. I know not a lot of parents are like this. A lot of parents would be like, let's play it safe. Let's just make sure that you're safe. And this is big. He was really seeing it for you. And I feel like, really in life, I remember hearing this from like experienced adults, but when I was younger, and they helped me realize that I was trying to go, safe, or most people are trying to go safe. Go study this thing that's going to guarantee you a good job, so that you for sure going to have this income, so that you'd be safe because you're going to survive this. And for a lot of people, this safety net is a spider web into something that eventually is like, I went and studied and got myself so involved and invested in something that wasn't really in my core passion, but I just did it to be safe, or maybe to satisfy my parents. And then a lot of times later on in life, it fires back at you.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's amazing for me. I never heard this story to hear that, your dad, although I'm sure he wanted safety and security for you, he was like, you go with your heart, and life is not anyway. And you will have problems anywhere you'll go. Either if you'll be a banker, you'll have problems. Either if you'll be a superstar, you'll have problems. There will be problems everywhere. So might as well have problems in the area that you're most passionate about.
Right, because the biggest problem is being unhappy with your life. Like the biggest problem, it's like you can survive financial hardship, you can survive career setbacks, you can survive having to pivot in your career, like all those things. The thing you can't survive is being miserable. And I think he understood that. I think he understood that, like, and he was in this place of like, where the crash had hit, and he had like financially lost so much of what he had worked for, but like he had us, he had his family, he had and he was happy. He had created a life that made him happy. And I think that's why he was able to give that advice, was because he understood that like his career wasn't what made him happy. That's something I'm still trying to like come to terms with, of like, I've been very career first, like throughout my whole adult life. And really focused on like, that's what's going to make me happy, like this next career milestone, or like this next thing. Like I have to, keep pushing forward, because this is what brings me joy, and it does bring me a lot of joy. But I think that's like a really wise thing that comes with age and comes with years, is just realizing that like, if your career makes you happy, great. If your relationships make you happy, that's great. If your hobbies, your whatever it is, like you have to cobble together a life that you're happy with. And then like the shit that's gonna happen in the world, and in when markets crash and things go wrong, it won't hit you as hard, because you have made choices that make you happy. So that's what I'm trying to do, and not just be hyper focused and hyper ambitious all the time. Like just embrace having joy. I happen to have chosen a career that gives me a lot of joy and like a lot of fulfillment. Not all the time, but
maybe you can at some point elaborate on I feel like I would wish for anyone else that's hearing this conversation, and maybe they're also aspiring artists, maybe aspiring, writers, and I don't know if they're pursuing it or thinking about pursuing it, about the hardships, and how still, and how you still, pursuing it after all, and keeping that balance of being, yes, I'm mentally, okay.
Yeah. I think like, I mean, hardships, I have to remind myself of this too. Like hardships happen no matter what path you choose. Like nothing is going to be that easy. And there are days when it just feels like work. And then I remind myself, well, it is. Like if you weren't doing this, you would be doing something else. Like and I think one of the biggest like one of the biggest hardships, and it's something that like should be so avoidable because I know I shouldn't do this, but I do it anyway, and we all do, is
Like what?
comparison. I think like you compare yourself to others, you compare yourself to even to yourself. Like I'll think like, man, I used to be able to like churn out 10 pages like nothing, and like or I used to be able to just write for like 6 hours at a time without taking a break, or so you compare yourself to other people's success, or to or even to yourself, and it's just like, they say comparison is the thief of joy, and I think that's very true. And so like, yeah, comparison, competition, it doesn't it there's no good side to it. And I find that like a lot of times when I'm feeling really frustrated and really down on myself, it's often because I'm trying to measure myself up against someone else, and I mean, this isn't a super original thought that we should all stop comparing ourselves to each other, but I do find that it's one of the worst things to do as an artist, and probably as an anything.